Next up on the list, I have diatomaceous earth. So this is something that's commonly used. I know we kind of talked about this a little bit. We touched upon it in our last episode, but I wanted to bring it back up because it's something that I've done in the past. I don't do it every grow, but I've done it in the past where I sprinkle some diatomaceous earth on the top of the medium. And from what you hear through the grapevine is that it really helps prevent things like fungus gnats. Helps, they apparently it's like glass shards to them, and it's really hard for them to kind of be on top of the medium. I'm not sure if it destroys their exoskeleton or what, but I know in our past episode, you had mentioned that you had some concerns about the effectiveness of diatomaceous earth using it. What are your thoughts on diatomaceous earth? Is it still kind of something where the effectiveness is questionable, or is this something that's kind of proven to be helpful in preventing pests?
Yeah, I mean, diatomaceous earth has its place for sure. But I feel like when you apply it on soil, when it gets moist, it's not effective anymore. So since substrates are usually getting irrigated, that kind of hampers its effectiveness in that way. But you know, despite saying that, and despite also mentioning that I've read a bunch of research about using them, especially for fungus gnats in particular, apparently it was not found to be very efficacious. But people report it being effective for them. So I wonder if there's something going on with certain pests. I mean, when people say pests, that's kind of broad. But you know, specific kinds of pests might be totally unaffected, whereas others might be. Also, how are you evaluating that? I think is very important. If people just apply it and they just don't get any pests because they just weren't there, you can't really attribute that to having like a resistant effect, if that makes sense. So I think also people should pay attention to how they're evaluating different products in the first place. Where I would use it would be like on a hard surface that's not typically getting moist or hydrated, and then using that as like a physical barrier. Because you're right, what happens is that the diatoms that are harvested in the ocean, they have these silicate bodies and they crush them up into like basically glass. And then the insect cuticle, which is like a armored, you know, body, there's little joints, and those shards can get into them and they can cause a problem. And so it's like getting all cut up by glass shards while you're in a suit of armor. It's not a pleasant situation to be in.
Super interesting. And so you said hard surface. Could you give kind of examples on what you mean?
Yeah,
by
like a floor, perhaps. Like maybe like outside like at the threshold between like a door of like two rooms or something. If it's typically not getting like really, maybe on the outside potentially. Like that's how people use for like home pests, like ants and that kind of thing.
This clip is brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrow at 15 to save on any of their products.